back to the Keegan and Company podcast. For those who are new to the show, my name is Keegan Hipgrave. And guys, if you haven't already, could I get you to jump over, give us a little like and subscribe on whatever platform you listen to this podcast on, whether it's YouTube, Apple, Spotify. It's a great way for us to grow the podcast, grow the platform, and just have some incredible conversations like I'm going to have today. In this episode, I'm joined by one of the great men, professional skateboarder, Jake Hayes. How are you, brother?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on the pod.
Mate, I'm pumped we're doing this. We're in LA. The sun's out. It's a beautiful time. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'm really stoked to be here. I think that you guys do such a good thing for like the community and like athletes and mental health awareness. And so like, I don't know, I'm really glad to be here. I'm like stoked.
Well, brother, first skater as well.
There we go.
Yeah. Well, even we were having how it all came about. We're obviously doing like this trip over to like New York, Boston, LA. We're in the back end of the trip now.
Yep.
And I was talking to our good friend Chase about coming over to LA. He's like, mate, you got to catch up with Jakey. I was like,
for sure.
That'd be sick. So, mate, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I'm glad he teed us up. Stoked to be here.
You've been here for 8 years now. How you finding LA?
I like it. It's great. It's obviously the mecca for skateboarding. So that's what kind of drew me to coming over here. Obviously it's not home, so I mean I miss home so much, but you know, like it is what it is, and I'm like stoked to be here to do my job and to be fortunate enough to be over here and to be able to do that, you know. Where's
home back for you in Australia?
Well, I was born and raised in Sydney, but my mum moved from Sydney to Maryborough up in Queensland. So she's like, what is that, 3 hours north of Brisbane?
Yeah.
So I'm technically up there.
Does that mean for like state of origin, I will refer back to footy? Are you like a Queenslander or you're a New South Walesman?
New South Wales, always.
Oh man, that's all right, mate. We won't hold that against you today. Mate, growing up, obviously like skateboarding's been a huge part of your life. What do you think drew you to skating originally?
Well, originally it was like my next door neighbors, they got skateboards and like they kind of just filtered through all types of like action sports, you know, like that's kind of when scooters started. So they kind of had a scooter for a little bit. That's when like they're into BMX, inline rollerblading, and then like they picked up skateboarding, and that was kind of like the one that they stuck with. And so being a next door neighbor, and that's kind of who I'm hanging out with every day, all day, like after school, whatever, like naturally kind of just gravitate towards whatever they're gravitating towards. And so yeah, we picked up the skateboard and the rest is history.
We were kind of having this conversation this morning, like even with Kobe, the one of the blokes who's coming to shoot for us. We're having this conversation around, we think skateboarders are like the most dialed in athletes out of anyone. Like we've had a lot of conversations with crew on this podcast, with whether that being like footy players, you know, Olympic athletes, swimmers, track field, whatever it is. But I look at surfers and probably skaters probably more so, where it's just like you're skating all day and you become like so obsessed in it.
For sure. Yeah, it's like I don't know, there's like specific goals to reach in skateboarding, you know, and so like when you start out as a skateboarder, you know, like the first goal is to like learn how to ollie, and then, you know, like obviously all the other goals come with like tricks to learn, but then you've got the kind of goals where it's like, I want to be a pro skateboarder, I want to have my name on a skateboard, I want to like be on the cover of a magazine, I want to live in LA and be in the industry, I want to like have my name on a shoe, I want to like do all this stuff that kind of like is like the bucket list of stuff to tick off as being a professional skateboarder. So like you've always got something to work for.
So when you were younger and you were, you know, knocking around with your friends in the backyard, is that the goal?
The goal is like...
Or was that the goal back then?
Back then, like maybe not directly from the get-go, like not really understanding that you can have a career in professional skateboarding. And like even back then it wasn't as like prevalent as it is now. There wasn't as much money in it. It wasn't in the Olympics, stuff like that. So like maybe like when I started, the goal wasn't directly to be a pro skater, but as you start to like get into it a bit more, you start to figure out who pro skaters are, you get like attached to certain pro skaters, you're like, that's my favorite, I really like that guy, I want to do what he's doing. You start to like build that up and you're kind of like, all right, well maybe this is the path that I want to take too.
Was there certain styles that you kind of emulated growing up? Or was there a couple blokes that you'd be like, oh, I love that style, that's something that I kind of want to relate to?
It was definitely like more so people. So like my favorite skater's always been Andrew Reynolds, and I think that came about from playing the Tony Hawk games. And so like once you finish the game, you get their little like secret tape. And so like I finished the game with Andrew Reynolds, and that was kind of like, I'd seen him in other movies, like other skate videos. So like that was the dude I chose, and like that was kind of like the style that I tried to emulate.
How do you split, because obviously now you got like street skating, but then also comp. Like what's the difference? Because I imagine you can go pro in both of them. Like that's something that I'm trying to understand. Like how, like what defines someone of like going pro? You talked about the shoe and the board and everything.
Yeah.
How do you separate the two?
So essentially, like turning pro is like getting your name on the board, and the people that give you that are the people that own the company. And generally, you hope that like, or myself personally, like I wanted to skate for people who were pro skateboarders or are still currently pro skateboarders, so that like when they give you the board, it means something. You know, it's not just some like random businessman being like, hey man, like we turned you pro because we think your boards are going to sell. So like it's almost like a nod of approval from people who you've looked up to. So like Andrew Reynolds being my favorite skateboarder, now I ride for his board company. So he's the dude who sits there and is like, yep, we're going to put him in the pro ranks, we're going to put his name on a board, and like we believe in him and we believe that he can like sell boards for us, you know. And so
that's gonna be pretty cool, man.
Oh, it's crazy. Like, I mean, I've looked up to this dude my whole skateboarding career, and now to be able to like ride for his company, it's wild.
When you were growing up, you obviously, you know, you would have been, I imagine, probably pretty good growing up. Like when you know, you must have been. But was there a point in time where you thought, oh, I could probably actually make a run at this as a career?
I think like in the back of my head, it was always kind of like I was never going to take no for an answer. So like I was always just going to keep pushing towards it. But like me being a skateboarder and the person I am, like I've never been good enough. You know, it's like I'm never going to be like the pro skateboarder I want to be. It's just because the grass is always greener, you know, like you can always be better. But yeah, I don't know, like it's just like a personal thing, you know.
But there's got to be a moment where like imagine a brand reached out to you or someone reached out where you're like, oh, I'm starting to make a little bit of cash here.
Yeah,
get a bit of recognition potentially.
Yeah, I mean, like being from Australia, I think has its positives and negatives, you know. So like you're obviously in a much smaller pool. There's Australian magazines. There's the companies that are in America, but they've got the smaller Australian like hubs, you know. So like I rode for DC Shoes back in the day, and they were the first company to like give me a paycheck. And so I'm riding for DC Shoes in Australia. There's also like the big dogs on DC Shoes in America, you know. So that was probably like the first time where I was like, oh shit, like there's a bit of money now. Like it was nothing. It was nothing. I couldn't live off it or anything. But I'm like, this is my foot in the door to be able to like do what I need to do.
You talked about like a lot of milestones. Like a lot of people want to tick off milestones.
Yeah.
I imagine one of them you did say was moving over to LA. What prompted that move? How did that come about?
Well, skating for DC, you know, you get to a certain point. I like got to a point where I was like, all right, well, I've kind of exhausted everything I can do in Australia. Like I won Skater of the Year, and that was like where the magazine Slam, they kind of put it out there and to the public, and like kind of up to them as well to decide like who is Skater of the Year.
You brush over that like it's a very easy thing to get. I imagine it's probably pretty hard to get Skater of the Year, brother.
I mean, yeah, I guess, I don't know. It was just like at that point in my life, like I think it was 2015 was when I was kind of working towards it, and then 2016 was essentially like when I won. And so yeah, I don't know, like it was hard, but that's just what I felt that I had to do, you know, like that's the top of being in Australia as a skateboarder.
How did they decide Skater of the Year?
It really comes out to like, I mean, they have one in America too, like Thrasher Skateboarder of the Year, and their whole thing comes about like, what have you done for Thrasher throughout the year? Like you've had video parts come out on the website, you've had covers of the magazine, interviews in the magazine, and you've just kind of like supported the whole like culture of everything, you know. And so it's pretty similar with Slam in Australia. Like you have a cover, you have the interviews, you like submit footage to them so that they can put it out on their channels, and it's like it's just kind of like they scratch your back, you scratch their back. It's like, I don't know, like of course they're going to want all this content to be able to like put out, and of course you want to put out the content. So it's all just, I don't know, it all just works hand in hand.
Well, I imagine it's cool content as well. So after you won Skater of the Year, were the conversations around, okay, well, how do we make the move over to LA?
Well, at that point, I'd already quit DC. I stopped riding for DC to ride for New Balance. And so I'd been riding for New Balance for maybe a year or two. And so that was a part of like what I wanted to get out of like my career, was to be able to move to America. So thankfully I had the help of New Balance to be able to help me get over here and like figure it all out. And yeah, it was just like kind of the ball was rolling from there.
I think when we caught up this morning for coffee, you said like a lot of the guys in Australia, like LA's the place to be. It's sort of like the home ground of skating.
Yep.
What is it about it? Like, why is LA the place?
I mean, this is where skateboarding was born, really, you know, like Venice Beach and all that sort of thing, with like not being able to surf because the waves were shit. So they like, you know, built these boards and like be able to sidewalk surf essentially. So like this is where skateboarding was born, and so like naturally this is where all the companies end up. So you've got the board company I ride for is in North Hollywood, and then you've got the shoe company New Balance, like their head office is in Long Beach. So it's like all of these companies are just around, and so it like just makes it so much easier if like they're like, hey, we need you for a photo shoot. Like, okay, I'll just get in the car, drive to Long Beach. I don't have to get on a plane 15 hours to be there, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just things like that make it a lot easier to be in the zone.
Especially for someone who hates flying as well.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Which I didn't know about.
Yeah. That's something that's happened as of late, unfortunately. But get over it. Mate, hopefully one day.
Mate, you'll be going back and forth. Don't worry.
Oh,
but
no.
even that transition, because I know you're obviously a very humble guy. You brush over skater of the year, but I know for a fact, and I've spoken to a lot of the boys back home about, you know, how good you were, like how good you are, you know, coming up from Sydney. Even the boys Chase is like best skater in Sydney, like one of the like arguably one of the best skaters in Australia. And it's kind of like when you go over to LA, it's like fuck, everyone's good.
That's the problem. Is like, I mean, that's not really a problem. It kind of pushes you to be better, but like that's the thing is, you leave Australia having won skater of the year and you're kind of like the best you can be in Australia, you know, and then you move to America and you're at the bottom, essentially. You're like the flow guy who's just trying to get boards from the company. You're not even on the team yet, you know, so you got to like really push through. And then it's like, why should I ride for the team and not like one of these kids that's like local, you know, like why do I get the spot, you know? So you got to like really like show your value and your worth and like what you can do. Yeah,
what do you have to do practically? Like I'm trying to get out, like what did it look like when you came over here? Because I imagine you came over here like big, like almost big fish small pond, like let's go.
Yeah.
What do you have to do?
So essentially, I mean, I moved over here. Luckily I was able to move in with another pro skater that like really helped me out. He owned a condo that he was living in, and he was like, I got a spare room, you can rent it from me. It's a block from the skate park where everybody meets up to go skate. So like, come and do it, and it's all yours. And I'm like, all right, sweet. So I did that, and then, yeah, I don't know. It was just kind of, I don't know. It was a struggle in the beginning, honestly, just to like get on my feet and be like, okay, this is what I do. This is my daily routine. This is where I go do my groceries. You know, like it's like everything is so off. This is the first time I've lived out of home, and that's living in America. So I'm like new to having to pay rent every month and like all of this stuff, you know, so it's like it can be such a challenge, but you just kind of push through it.
Imagine that would be similar for anyone, not just moving countries, but probably like moving to interstate or moving away from home. Like you've got your support network, you're coming over here 100%. By yourself, like you know some crew, but even just like coming over here and figuring all that stuff out, like I imagine that would be so hard. Was homesickness a thing?
Homesickness was a thing. It was more sickness of like being away from the people I love, you know, like I'm like, I can deal with like being in a different place, but it's just like, oh, I miss like my friends, like I miss my family, like I just want to be with those dudes, you know. And then like, yeah, you start getting down when you start really thinking about stuff, and you're like, all right, well, I don't really have that friendship group to like, if something happens, to just call and be like, hey, I'm like tripping, you know, like this sucks. Like you can call them, but it's like it feels so far away. And so that's like one big thing about moving to LA, where you're like, all right, you're kind of on your own, you got to like figure it out.
You've been here for 8 years now. Have you built that crew now?
Yeah, for sure. Like, and I mean that comes with like having sponsors and stuff like that. You know, you like meet people on the team and you just kind of vibe with people. And then so like I've also gotten into cars a little bit lately, and so like the BMW community has been like really cool, and it's like nice to get away from skateboarding a little bit too, and to just be like, all right, these guys are just like people who are car enthusiasts. We all just like the same car, you know. And so we just talk about car stuff.
Tying that back into being so dialed in, and like obviously great to have hobbies outside of it. Do you think growing up and even before the BMW scene, do you think that you were really dialed into skating and there wasn't really anything else out there? And I don't mean to put words in your mouth.
No, 100%. That was definitely like, I mean, it almost seemed kind of lame to like something other than skateboarding.
Really?
Like, yeah, you like football, you're a jock. You like something else, like you're a nerd. You know, like it's just like you got to skate, and if you don't live, breathe, and die skateboarding, like you're not cool. But now it seems like it's the exact opposite.
Do you find that?
I do, yeah. I feel like you've become more marketable if you have something else going for you. Like, you're not just a good skateboarder, you like cars, or you are an artist, or you play music. People really get down with that these days.
Man, I love that, because
Me too.
I subscribe to that 100%. I was
Yeah.
telling you about the boys back home on the Gold Coast, even like the crew that Chase and us knock around with. Like,
Yeah.
everyone's got their own little thing, yeah.
For sure.
Whether it's like restaurants, cafes, boys are into fashion, boys
Yeah.
still play sport, like a heap of surfers, heap of footy players. That obviously footy's my background,
For sure.
and we all vibe with each other because we kind of respect, like, us footy boys. Like, we love the idea of business, yeah, and we love the
For
idea
sure.
of building brand. But whereas the other boys, like, they fuck with footy and they like doing that
Exactly.
stuff. So it's a kind of like, and it's cool. And I'm keen to hear what it's like over here in LA. But back home, it's like, how do we lift each other up? Like, can we collaborate? Can we do some stuff with that? Who can we introduce you to? So
Yeah.
everyone's lifting up, man. And I love that community, man.
For sure. Yeah, no, it's sick. I think that, there's like a niche of people over here who are really trying to build up the community. But for the most part, it seems like everybody's just kind of their own individual person, and everybody's just trying to figure it out. Like, everyone's like, I don't know. Wouldn't necessarily say people are like climbing over everyone to get to the top.
Yeah.
Not at least in the industry I'm in. Everyone's just trying to do their best and get to where they're going, So like, it doesn't really, I mean, I say that, but then you have people collaborating on stuff all the time,
Yeah.
like it's hard to say.
It is, mate. It's cool, and I guess it's cool that you've got that crew that you can knock around.
For sure.
With.
Yeah.
Was there ever a time when you were skating where, not that you like burnt any bridge or anything, but I kind of want to get into the fact of like how like dialed in you were to skating, because it's probably the reason why you got to be so good, right?
Yeah, I mean, being a skateboarder, like, if you pick it up and you love it, you spend a lot of time doing it. It's day in, day out. You finish school, first thing you do is go get your board, and you're skating in your school uniform at the skate park. You like don't even have time to get changed because you're so obsessed with it. It's like, as soon as it gets dark, you're putting on skate videos to watch videos, and it's like, you really do get locked in because there is like this obsession with it, to where like I was saying, you can really accomplish all of this stuff. Like, skateboarding took me into like Sydney City for the first time. Like, skateboarding like introduced me to all these people. Like, it did so much for me that, like, yeah, I don't know, it's crazy.
I want to get into the fact of like, if you ever fallen out of love with skating, because I know personally, and a lot of crew that I talk to, when you've done something for so long,
Yeah.
And especially when it becomes your job, you start out, you do it because you love it.
For sure.
You spend a heap of time in it, but then when it becomes your job, and you're doing it all day, every day,
Yeah.
you sort of like can almost fall out of love with it.
For sure. I think that's like 100% true. Like, I've gone through my waves, like, you definitely go through the waves of where you're like, oh shit, like, do I really feel like going out and like jumping down a 10 stair today and like jumping on a handrail, potentially sack the rail, or do whatever, like, there's always so many like risks and dangers with it, to where you're like, do I really want to like do that today? And you're like, you go in the waves, and I kind of just ride the wave. I'm not going to go force it if I'm not feeling it. Like, I'm not going to go force it, because that's when I feel like I'm going to get hurt, and then I'm really not skating, and that's not my choice. It's like, I don't know.
Has there been any examples of where you didn't want to skate but you just pushed it anyway?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head that have been like detrimental to like me or my career or anything. But yeah, I just know that that's how it's going to work. It's like just Murphy's Law.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bro. How do you fall, like, I don't want to say how you fall back in love with skating, but is it just a matter of like riding those waves? Because like, there would be so many crew who I imagine who are listening to this who are like, man, I love aspects of skating, or I love aspects of, copy and paste that to whatever career you want to do. Yeah. How do I get back to that flow state and that time where I'm like, I'm really enjoying it? Do you have any tips or anything that you do?
I'm really big on like setting yourself up for like personal satisfaction.
Yeah.
Whether that's like going out and filming a trick on the iPhone and like, I don't know, making a little edit and being like, cool, like, I'm super stoked on how this came out. Like, I really like that. You get that personal satisfaction of being like, cool, sick, I did that, Or it's like, yeah, I don't know, just trying to reward yourself with like, I don't know, like, yeah, little rewards that are going to like incentivize you and motivate you to like get off the couch and be like, all right, yeah, like it is fun. Just go grind some curbs or something. You don't have to like jump down the 10 stair. You can have fun. Just because it's your job doesn't mean you have to be on 24/7, you can just go fuck around in the parking lot.
Man, I love that.
Yeah.
I reckon that's sick. Yeah, I fully subscribe to that. Do you lean into like the media content space at all? Is that something that interests you?
I love it.
Yeah.
Like I love Instagram. I love TikTok. Like I love the feeling of being productive, going out there and being like, all right, I'm going to the skate park. I want to get a clip for Instagram.
Yeah.
Like I know that my sponsors appreciate it. That's me doing my job. And I'm like, that's what I like to do. Like I like to do my job, and I like to keep the people who keep me going, like keep them happy.
It's kind of like you're in the skating, but then you've also got, like you talked about the BMWs and you talked about the content, like these are other, you know, pillars where you're not just like JK's the skater. You're
For
also
sure.
like in the media space. You're also in building cars. Like these are adding different levels to you. I think that's a huge piece.
Well, it's also just like I don't know what's going to happen when I can't skate anymore.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to be the dude who spent 25, 30, 35 years skating, or however long it's going to be, and then when I'm all said and done and I can't skate, I'm just like back to square one, where I'm like, I didn't even entertain anything while I was skating. I've got so much free time. I don't work a 9 to 5. I should be like picking some stuff up in my spare time, you know?
Do you think about the future often in skating, like for you?
Yeah, I do think about it, and like at the end of the day, like I just want to do what is going to keep my sponsors happy. And like if my sponsors are happy, that generally means that the public is happy too. And so like, or the people who are like buying products with my name on it. And so like I really care, because these people have like put themselves out there to like help me and to do this, and like the least I can do is show the respect to like come through.
Is it like an age where guys usually start wrapping up? Because I know in footy, it's like if you can get to 30, 35, like you've had a killer career.
For sure.
You know, you've had an amazing career. Most guys, to be honest, I think the average NRL games is like 43, 46 games, which is like 2 seasons. It's like hardly anything.
Okay.
Yeah, but you might be in a system for 8 years or 6 years or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you can hit 30, 35, that's huge.
Okay.
Skating, is it can you just go as long as you can, man? Like, what does it look like?
Honestly, like, yeah, back when skating kind of first started to pick up like popularity, you know, it was the kind of thing where like you would turn pro at 19 and your career is done at 22, because they're just like, well, you're too old now, you got to go get a job and be like a real human and like go do that. So you literally hang up the boots and you're done.
Really?
Yeah, but as time has gone on, like people like Andrew Reynolds, he's probably 46 now, I think, and he's still jumping down, just signed with New Balance, like doing all of this stuff, and it like gives people like me so much faith, because I'm like, there are people out there. Mark Gonzalez has got to be in his 50s. He's still out there. He's still like a popular, recognizable name in skateboarding, and he's still doing it, still contributing.
What are these boys doing that's different?
I think that they just like, I don't know. They're both legends, obviously. They're both legends in the game. They both pushed skateboarding and the tricks and everything to like the furthest that they can go. Whereas like Mark Gonzalez is like a pioneer of skateboarding. Yeah. Andrew Reynolds has just taken it to the next level. And so like they've built the name over their career to be the type of person to like, yeah, when you're 46, you can just put clips on Instagram and it's all good. People just want to watch you skate. So you can like withstand like a career through social media. So like you can be older and just like do your thing, be an artist on the side, skate, do whatever, and people back it and they're like, I want to buy your shit.
Man, I love that. It's kind of like these crew are like they're doing what they love.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, they're doing what they love, and that's probably something that I've learned in the last maybe couple years. Where if you're doing something, if you can do what you love, and I think genuinely help people, and then like somehow like make a living out of it,
for sure,
that's the golden circle where you want to be, man.
Yeah, and think about someone like Tony Hawk. Right. Like he's in his 50s or 52 maybe or something like that.
Getting on, man.
Yeah, and he's still out there killing it, still doing everything, and it's like that is so inspirational. I mean, yeah, he has a different discipline to me. He skates a vert ramp and I skate on the streets. But like, I don't know, take it or leave it. He's a 52-year-old man like doing this shit.
Still ripping.
And so like, yeah, I don't know, that's inspiration in itself, you know?
Man, I love that. Brother, this is obviously like a mental health and sport podcast. Like I was telling you before, like love having conversations with crew like yourself who obviously, you know, really influential in their own communities and in their own right. And I think when, you know, understanding the space of mental health, I think it's sort of different in every community. And in the rugby league space, I've seen it change like a heap over time. I remember when I first came to like an NRL system, I was like 17. Most of the guys are like, you know, in their 20s, some are like hitting their 30s.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like you're talking about what's going on, right?
No, for sure.
It was very much like just get on with it. You know, fuck, that's just the way it was.
Yeah,
Probably
quit
like
being a pussy.
quit being a pussy. Get on with it.
For sure.
And I didn't like that. I fucking hated that, and so I wanted to change it. And I think not that I changed it, but I think it's slowly starting to change over time.
For sure, yeah.
I look at the skating world, and I look at it as like probably a pretty similar landscape. I'd love to get a bit of an idea of what the skating landscape looks like in mental health, or probably more so how it's changed over time.
For sure, yeah. So it seems that like similar to football, like you're saying, like it kind of just was in the beginning where it's like, oh, just get over it. You're a pussy. Like mental health isn't real, whatever, you know? And so like over the last, like, I would say 6 or 7 years, I have seen like such a big change in the way of how skateboarders, I don't know, deal with and kind of come together to try and help people with mental health issues.
What do you mean? Give me an example.
So, I mean, unfortunately, there has been like a couple of skateboarders who have, you know, succumbed to mental health issues and taken their lives. And with that has come organizations being set up. And it's come like so much awareness to the skateboarding industry to where like people are getting on board, people are doing all this stuff for these organizations and like really trying to get behind the message of like talk to someone if you need it, you know. And so like I think that like I don't know, like I think it's such an important thing because like people think that obviously being a skateboarder, I'm sure it's the same with football, like, oh, life's all great, it's perfect, you live in LA and you're a pro skateboarder, but like that's not the case. Everyone still has their issues, you know. And so like to be able to bring light to it through people's organizations and stuff like that, I think that's incredible.
Bro, I love that, and I think that's why like these conversations are so important. Yeah. Has there been any times throughout your career where you know you really struggled with something and you didn't think you'd be able to get past it, but then you did? Or there might be something that you're still working with.
I mean, yeah, I feel like a lot of my mental health struggles and things that have come with that have kind of stemmed from relationships with like ex-relationships with partners or family, things like that, where that shit can really take a toll on you and you don't really think about it in the moment. You know, you're down, you're upset, you're whatever, but you're not really thinking of like what is the root cause of this issue. And like having been through that and having 20/20 hindsight, you can sit there and be like, holy shit, like this is why I've been feeling like this. Like this is why I did this when I was younger. This is why I do this now. You know, you can kind of like piece it all together. And I guess that kind of comes a bit with getting older too, and like just kind of being a little bit more open-minded to trying to fix yourself, or not fix yourself, but just trying to like understand yourself a bit more.
Man, I think hindsight's a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
like,
for sure, of course.
Man, 100%. Like, and I love that you're like, you know, open to talking about this kind of stuff.
For sure.
Even and I've even seen a few clips and even talking to you prior, like like skating and looking at, you know, when you might not be able to pull a trick. That feeling of like that anger and breaking boards.
For sure.
So that's something that you really subscribed with and something that was like pretty relatable.
For sure. And like, yeah, you could talk to Chase. Chase is definitely someone who has seen it firsthand on more occasions than one. Like, I'll try a trick 3 times and I'll throw a tantrum. I'll be in the biggest fit of rage. I'll be screaming. I'll focus my board. Like, that means like snap it and like throw it around, do whatever. And I'm like, friends will talk to me like, it's all good, bro, it's all good. And I'm like, nah, fuck off, it's not good. You know, like, I'm not good. This is not good because fucking I'm better than this. Like, I should be able to do this. Like, this is... And I think that obviously everyone holds himself to like a certain regard. You know, you have a certain standard of yourself. And like, my standard that I set for myself is way too high.
Yeah.
Like, way too high. Who am I to think that I should land a trick 3rd go? Like, it's... I don't know. But as I've gotten older, I've kind of learnt that like, that's not the way to deal with this. Obviously, it's like it's not the tool's fault. It's the person using the tool. You know, like I'm doing this. I'm the reason why this isn't working out. And trying something over and over, doing the exact same thing and expecting a different result is crazy.
Where do you think it's the high expectation that leads to the rage? Because mate, I get it. I've been there. Like,
for sure.
Anyone who or mates who watch me play footy, it was kind of like when you're on the field, I'd be a different person, bro. I'd be so aggressive.
For sure,
like, I'd be angry. I'd be like doing all these rogue stuff that I take off the field, I'm like, that's not me, man.
For sure.
But then when you cross the line, you sort of have this like super competitive edge, and I relate that to having a high expectation and being competitive and wanting to win.
For sure.
But I understand that's not everyone's thing. It could be, you know, for a relationship thing, it might be something else. What do you think it was for you?
I think it was obviously the expectations, obviously, and then I think it was also seeing people who were better than me. And it's not like I don't want to be better than anyone. I'm not trying to be in competition with anyone, but it's seeing people get to the point that I want to get to. And I'm like, I guess it's like a burning desire inside to just be like, fuck, I want that so bad. And like, this shit isn't happening quick enough. Like, I fucking want this right now. And like, obviously it's not an overnight game. I'm 32 years old and I'm still working on like ticking off these bucket list items. So like, it doesn't happen overnight. And you kind of, when you're in the zone, you kind of hope it does, and you're kind of expecting it to. And when it doesn't, that fit of rage comes in, and you,
what do you think the things were? Because you said you look back now and it's just like, oh, you know, hindsight's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
What do you think the steps were that you took to get to the place where you are now, looking back?
I just think that it was honestly having like such a good support system, having like my friends and stuff, like my friends keeping me level-headed and just being like, yo, like, this is not the way you're supposed to deal with this. And like, you're going to go on a trip with a company and you're going to pull this same shit, and they're going to be like, we don't want anything to do with you. Why would I go to China, be with all these American pros, and start having a tantrum, throwing my board, and those dudes be like, yeah, we'll take him on another trip. And like, why would they do that? So it's just kind of been, I don't know. And I am not saying that I'm an angel today. Like, there is still so many chances that like this happens, you know, and like, obviously it's way more like mellow and calm down, and I'm like so mellow with it, but it can just happen, you know. Like, obviously, yeah, it comes back to the expectations. You hold yourself to this regard, but I think now getting to the point where I've had the covers, not a cover of Thrasher, which I'm still working towards, it's one of the bucket list items, but the covers in Australia, I turned pro, I live in America, like I've ticked off quite a lot of the bucket list to where I'm like, when this shit happens, I don't have to freak out so much, you know. I'm not like stressing so hard. I'm here, it's all good, tomorrow's another day.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
like, you can really just calm it down, hopefully.
I think that's really cool, calming it down. And I think like managing the emotions is a big thing, especially when you're young and you're a teenager. You're probably like full of testosterone as well.
For sure,
like,
yeah.
You're probably around your boys as well, and you're probably like, no, these are the things I should be hitting.
For sure.
The managing emotions piece, I learned later on in the piece. Like, same thing with like be butting heads, we do all this thing, and it probably wasn't until I was like just before I finished up footy, where I really started probably understanding it.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, I don't know if I have any tools. I feel like it was just like an age thing and a maturity thing. But I love what you said about like having the crew around you, be like, nah, that's not sweet.
Yeah.
Was there any times that you were on a trip, or you might have been knocking around with the American crew, where someone would be like, almost chip you and be like, mate, that's not sweet?
For sure. I was in Oakland on a DC trip, and this was, I don't know, this was probably like one of the first times that I'd like been in America, and I'm going on like an American trip, and it's like not a huge trip, it's not a big deal, but I'm still getting out with the guys, and I'm going on a trip, and I'm like new to this whole thing. And I'd probably tried a trick like 4 or 5 times, and I started getting mad, and the photographer like got up at me, and I was like, oh shit, like that was fucked. Like, that made me feel so awkward and uncomfortable that I was just like, all right, like, keep your mouth shut, don't do that. Like, people have told me and they've warned me about this, and I just experienced it, and it wasn't even anything bad. He was just like, hey bro, like, you got to stop that right now. And I was just like, oh shit, like, all right, yeah, sorry, my bad. Like, but yeah, I don't know, it's little things like that. I'm glad it happened, you know. I'm in Oakland can be kind of sketchy, and so like, what if I'm throwing my board, causing a ruckus, and some dude pulls up and he's just like, give me all your camera gear. And I'm like, I just caused that because I was being an idiot. And so like, I'm so aware of all of this stuff because of things like that happening.
But that's the little chip. It's almost just like a little chip somewhere.
Yeah, yeah.
And even on the other side, because I imagine there's probably a lot of crew who people look up to. You know, you've got a lot of mates who you look up to.
For sure.
Similar, and even looking outside. But that would be hard for someone. Obviously, the photographer felt very comfortable.
Yeah.
But I can look from personal experience. If I had a younger kid or someone that I was like taking the piss or being too much, and they chipped you for it, you're like, wait, that's not sweet, or pull it back.
Yeah.
You'd almost get that little bit of a reality check.
For sure.
But that's hard for someone to do, man.
For sure. And yeah, like, thankfully it was him that did it. He's an OG in the game, and he, like, do you know the amount of people he's probably seen come and go through DC? Like, I'm just some kid from Australia. Like, I could be gone next week. Like, he doesn't give a fuck. But like, he cares about his camera equipment. He cares about like everyone's safety and well-being at the spot. And like, yeah, I don't know. Like, and I agree so much. Like, I could have just been one of those kids that dropped off the face of the earth and never heard from again, you know? So
I would probably push back on that and say he probably was doing that to help, man.
I mean, yeah, maybe. Yeah, like it just as well could have been the fact that he was like, I don't want this kid to fuck it up. So like, don't do this shit and figure it out.
Mate, we've talked off air about obviously like relationships. You mentioned before about the relationship with your old man. How do you think that's played? How do you think your relationship with your old man has played into, you know, your skating? You talked about managing emotions. Is there a link between the two at all?
I think so. Like, the more I think about it as I get older, I think like, yeah, just because like mum and dad having problems. Obviously, they divorced when I was, I want to say, I can't remember exactly when it was, but somewhere between 9 and 11. So, you know, you're pretty young, and kind of splits the household up. You got two different sides to the family now. It's kind of, Christmas is different, all of that sort of thing. And so I always felt that there was a little bit of a disconnect between my parents when it came to support for what I did. Like, I felt that I got 100%, 110% support from my mum. It would be, I'll take you to the skate park, Vertex, where I met Chase. I'll take you to the skate park. We get there at 10 a.m. and we don't leave till 8 p.m. And she sits on the couch up the back reading a book.
Your mum's there
the whole time. Wow. At this point, I'm only 13. She doesn't trust like dropping me off and just leaving me there. If I get hurt, what's going to happen? Blah, blah, blah. So she's sitting there chilling up on this couch in the skate park for however long so I can skate. Not like, I'm not trying to like bash my dad. The whole point of this isn't to like bash him and to point him out into being like a bad person or anything like that. It's just kind of how it's happened and where it's gone, you know? And so like, I didn't feel that support that I needed when I was a kid from him when it came to something that I loved doing so much. It was always, you got to get a trade. You got to do this. Once you leave school, you got to do that. And I'm like, well, why would I want to do that when right now things are starting to pick up as a kid skating, and like, now's my time. I can't be a pro skater when I start pro skating when I'm 40 after I'm done being an electrician and like making a bit of money and stuff. Like, I have to do this shit now. And like, my mum believed that, you know, and it was always like, yeah, like I said, taking me to the skate park, doing that. And I think that my dad not believing so much, it kind of like almost like lit the fire a little bit more to be like, no, fuck you. You know what? Like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be a pro skateboarder and you're going to watch me do it. And so like, I feel like it's a bit of a driving force, you know.
I imagine that's a very hard piece when you love something so much and you're so determined for that.
Yeah.
And your old boy just, I don't know if they can't quite see it, or maybe the trade thing was a way to be like, look after you in a different way.
For sure.
I'm not sure.
I don't know either. And I mean, he grew up a tradie. He does cement rendering on buildings and stuff, you know, big apartment buildings and stuff. And so he also built cars like my whole childhood and stuff like that. And so like a real like blue collar guy, you know, does like a lot of that sort of thing. And so his whole thing was just that I'm going to do the same thing, plumber or electrician or whatever, you know. And I didn't really see that for myself. I didn't really agree with it, and I just felt that like, this is what I wanted to do. I didn't necessarily know what I could do with it, but I knew that like, this is somewhere that I need to go and I need to try, because like, you can go to uni as a late entrant whenever, you know, like, I don't care. I'll go learn whatever I want to learn later if this doesn't work out. Obviously, thankfully it did, but yeah, I don't know. Like, you can always figure it out.
Did you clash much growing up?
Yeah, I think that I'm a mama's boy, you know, like I've always have been. And I think that my sister got along with my dad a bit better. And so that was just kind of like the dynamic, me and my mum, sister and my dad. Not that it was, no one was against each other, but that's just kind of where we gravitated, you know. So
how's your relationship with your old boy now?
Not there. Yeah, so I haven't spoken to him for it's got to be coming up on about 8 years now.
Wow, man.
Yeah, it all kind of really started with him and my sister had some like big issues, and he has a wife and 2 kids, but they're her 2 kids with someone else, so stepbrother and sister. And so at the time, it kind of just felt like he took the side of his like new family, and we were just kind of, you know, whatever. And that's totally fine, you know, whatever. I don't hold him against it. I don't know what I would have done in the situation, you know, like, I mean, I don't know. I have no idea. But it really just kind of started with that, and my mum's just solo, you know, she doesn't have a partner, she doesn't have anyone, and I'm just like, I can't just leave her, like, and I don't feel right just acting like everything's all good with him when like things aren't good, you know. And like, I just, obviously it comes back to how much my mum's done for me. Like, I really care about her, and I really care about what she's done, and like, I'll take her side. Like, I know it's not really about picking sides, but like, I will take her side, you know. So
is that hard, man? Because like, I look at, I know I'm sitting in a position of privilege where I get on well with my mum and dad, like, but I've seen other mates who don't get on with their parents either, and I can see it takes a toll, and it's a hard thing.
For sure. I mean, it is hard because like, you obviously want the approval from your dad, you know. Like, I'm doing all this stuff, like now I'm building cars, or not necessarily building them myself, but I'm a car enthusiast. I'm getting under the hood, and I'm trying to learn, and I'm doing all this stuff.
Came from your old boy.
Came from him, obviously. And like, I didn't necessarily get into it this time because I thought about him, and I was like, oh, I want to learn about cars because he did. It was people over here, my friends, who are like, cars are sick, you should get into it. And then it's like, well, the untapped knowledge is kind of there from being around cars when I was young. And then like, yeah, just like, it's hard not being able to be like, hey dad, like, I'm building this BMW over here, like, it's pretty sick, like, this is what I'm doing, you know. Like, I don't have that that dialogue with him. So it's things like that, and like, I don't share in the achievements that I've made and stuff like that. So obviously I'm so glad that I have my mum. My mum is like so supportive of everything, even the cars, all of it, you know. She just wants to enjoy and appreciate what I do. So like, obviously it's still there.
You said you haven't spoken to your old boy in, you know, coming up in 8 years. Do you see a future where, you know, you guys will reconnect at all?
See, and that's like the problem we were talking about before, where I'm like, he's my dad, and I feel this some sort of like thing inside of me to where I'm like, he should hit me up because he's my dad, and I'm just the son, you know. Like, you should hit me up and do the right thing. But I'm 32 years old now. I'm an adult. Like, I'm going to start a family soon, and like, I'm going to be a dad. So like, it's such a like hard one to navigate. Like, I don't know. And like, I'm not opposed to having the contact, or like him reaching out, or myself reaching out. I just, it hasn't felt right for me to do so personally, for me to reach out. And so like, I don't know, I think about it a lot, you know.
You do think about it a lot?
I do think about it, like, it has to be almost every day.
Really?
Yeah. Like, it's something that I'm like, do I reach out? And like, I fucking hate to talk like this, but like, what if he dies? Or not what if, when? You know, everyone dies, and it's like, I'm not going to get that closure if I don't talk to him. Even if it's closure of being like, fuck you, you fucked up, I don't want anything to do with you. There's just no closure at the moment. And so that's something that kind of weighs on me quite a bit, and I think about it quite often. But I just try and like keep pushing through. And one of the main things is like, when I'm a dad, like, I want to make sure that I'm like the best that I possibly can be. Like, I don't want this shit happening, you know. And so I think that's like the silver lining on the whole situation, you know, like, is I've learned what not to do. And so, yeah.
I think there's been a lot of people in that position. The whole time you're talking, I just constantly think what it would be like if you guys did have if you did have that conversation, and fuck man, it might not be that great. Like you say, it probably will be a heated thing in time.
Yeah.
But I just constantly think about what that would look like if you guys did hash it out and just have that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, like, I genuinely feel like I would, hate to say it, but I'd probably go in there with some animosity. I'd be pretty pissed off because he's just done some like shady shit to my mum in the past couple of years, and it's like, it got a little messy for a while, and yeah, I don't know. And it's just, again, like, I took my mum's side, like, and the stuff that happened, I don't want to get too into it just because it's all
We
like
don't have to.
lawyer stuff and all
And
that
you know
shit.
what, brother? Anything you say here, we can take out.
Yeah, no
just by
worries.
the way,
Yeah, no worries at all. But yeah, like it felt like it got kind of messy for a bit. And again, he's got his support system with his family and her 2 kids and things like that, and that's cool. But like, my mum has no one.
Yeah.
And I feel like this. I feel compelled inside to just like be with my mum and help my mum. You know.
Man, I've got so much respect for you, like, to be able to talk like this now, bro, because I know it's a hard thing to do.
For sure.
And to be honest, man, most people that are willing to have these types of conversations, they'll do it after the fact, you know, like they'll do it after they have the conversation. They'll do it after they've, you know, they might have been through cancer, but they get out the other side, or they might be been a domestic violence and they come out the other side.
Yeah.
It's very rare that someone will talk about it while they're still in there.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
And mate, I got fucking goosebumps. Think about it now, man. Like, because it's like, it's such a hard thing, but the vulnerability piece of you talking about it now, I respect hugely. Why are you so open to talking about it now?
I mean, I've never really told anyone this sort of thing. You know, like my close friends know that I don't have a good relationship with my dad, stuff like that. But like the general public, I wouldn't say knows anything about it. And like, I don't know, like my mum it's like she's finished with all like the court stuff and everything like that. And so like that's kind of all in the past. She's moved away from Sydney. She's up north. She kind of just got away from everything. And like, I don't know. I feel like it's important for other people out there to know that like this is a common thing, you know, like people go through issues with their family. I personally don't have an answer on how to deal with it, obviously, because I'm still involved in it. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I just want people to know that like you can go through this, you can try and find something that is going to help you get through it, you know, and like there is light at the end of the tunnel. Like I'm fine, you know, like I feel great. My life is great. And it's just, I have that thought of like, oh shit, like this is something I'm going to need to do at some point in my life. Hopefully not before it's too late, you know? And so, yeah, I mean, yeah, I just really feel like people could benefit from hearing that like other people are in this situation, you know?
Bro.
It happens.
I love everything about that. I think that's why, mate, that's the whole reason for these conversations.
For sure.
And I think you'll be surprised on how many crew will reach out afterwards. Like, mate, 50% of, you know, couples divorce throughout their time. And so imagine the kids, imagine the families, or imagine the parents that are out there who might be listening or might hear about this, where it's just like, you know what, like I'm going to reach out to my kid.
There you go. Yeah.
You know?
And it's like, who's to say my dad won't reach out?
Yeah.
You know, I have no idea. I don't know what could happen from this, but I do believe that like, yeah, there are so many people going through this, and like, I still feel like I've built something pretty good for myself, even though I've had to deal with this sort of thing. Like you can push through the struggle and like get through it. But I do think that like the closure is what's going to like encapsulate this and like end it, you know?
I got this theory that I've been thinking about recently, where it's just like, I look back at like the hardest times in my life, usually have generated some sort of positive thing, whether it's like, I lost one of my best mates to suicide when I was 17. That got me into mental health and doing stuff with Movember, and to be honest, led to doing the podcast. I was medically retired from rugby league. I had too many concussions. Neurologist told me to medically retire, but then that led me to again doing all this stuff that I love. Is that something that you subscribe with? Because I look at like what you're doing, you know, or the conversations, or the whole how fucked up and heavy it is with your old boy and your family. But then you look at how hard you've had to work to get to where you are, and now you talk about how you want to be a good dad and everything like that. Is it something that you think about at all, or?
Yeah, I mean, it really feels like it's just like a full circle thing, you know, where you like, you feel like the times weren't as good at home when they could have been better, and you use that as the inspiration and the motivation to like complete the goals that you've had for yourself, you know, and like you get to a certain place to where you're like, all right, like now I'm going to start my family. And I just think it's really important to like, learning from the mistakes are the most important thing to learn from. I think like what not to do is such a big lesson, if it's more important than like what to do, I think. And like to be able to learn and to have other people be able to learn from like my mistakes, you know, is perfect. So that people don't have to go through 7 years of no contact with a parent, you know, like that's the main thing that I'm like hoping to like get out of all of this, is that like maybe someone can like do it better than I did, you know?
Mate,
So,
you said you talk about being a good dad. What kind of dad do you reckon you'll be? Do you reckon you'll get them on a board like pretty young?
I mean, I'm down. I mean, I just kind of want them to do whatever they gravitate towards. You know,
Yeah.
there's always going to be skateboards in the house.
Yeah.
And so there's probably a pretty good chance they're either going to gravitate towards that or golf, because my lady loves golf.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. So yeah, it's really either going to be one of those two, I think. But like, I'm more than happy that for them to do whatever they want.
Man.
As long as they're happy, I really don't care. And like, I will 100% support them in whatever they want to do.
But I love that.
So,
I think that's probably the best thing, because thinking about it all the time. I was like, I don't care
for
if
sure.
they play footy. I probably prefer them if they didn't play footy. But
For
if
sure.
they're on a surfboard, if they love the water, and that's
Yeah.
so sick.
Yeah, and it's like, I think that's like a page out of my mum's book. You know, it was always just like, oh, you picked up skating. Like, my mum loved that I did karate. Like, I did karate when I was a kid. She supported that. She'd be up at the school with me at like on a Thursday night doing karate. And so like, the support system just always felt like it was there with her. And it's just unfortunate that she didn't get to continue that support with someone that felt the same, and to be able to like build up a family and like be super happy about it, you know. But she just did the best she could, and like, any good attributes that I have, they come from her.
Yeah.
Anything that like any reason as to why I'm in the position I'm in today is because of her.
It's that relationship piece is something that I don't hear a lot about, man, to be honest,
Yeah.
especially in like mainstream media, podcasts. Like, it's even to be honest with mates, like I'll only speak to like my really close mates about like relationship stuff.
For sure.
But bro, like, relationships and finance are two of the biggest drivers of male suicide between, I think it's like 17 or 23 to 44.
Yeah.
Like the top two contributors, which is
For
what,
sure.
and we'll put a trigger warning at the start of this episode. But it's like that's such a big statistic to not talk about.
For sure. And like, the thing that I like talking about money. I like talking about this as I've gotten older, and I've kind of realized that like, in the olden day, it has been more taboo to talk about money and how much you make, or I'm investing in this stock, or like I'm doing this. But like, now I'm like, what are you up to?
Yeah.
What are you doing? But it seems like everybody's like, let's go, let's get up.
I think that's a building piece on how to help other crew, right? Especially when you see other ones like crew doing it right.
For sure,
it helps us.
For sure. And that's perfect. Like, you're learning from these people's mistakes who are like doing it all wrong, and you're like, all right, I'm going to do the opposite to what they did. And then it's like, yeah, you've got the homies who did it right, and they're like, yeah, this is what you do.
Yeah,
They
man.
throw in the little nuggets.
And you probably want to like gravitate towards those guys.
For sure.
And I love what people are doing in different industries. Like, to be honest, man, don't have many conversations with skaters. Like,
Yeah,
this is
for
like
sure.
this is a whole new thing for me.
Yeah.
And we talked about like the boys back home, and everyone's doing different things. Everyone's learning, brother. Like,
For sure.
everyone's learning. It's so sick.
Yeah, it's it feels like it's like a time of everybody bringing everybody up. Like, you just invested in this stock, like, let me invest in it too, because like, you're seeing good gains, like, I'm going to gain from it too.
100%.
And then like, coming back to the relationship thing, I think that relationships do play such a big part of mental health and where your mental health sits. Like, right now, I feel like I'm in like the most healthy relationship, and I'm so happy. And like, she's so supportive of like me skating. I'm supportive of her golfing, and she's a model as well. So if she has to go do stuff, like, I'm so juiced for her. And like, I don't know, I feel like things like that, you're right, it really is like being in a good relationship can like really make you excel and like push things further, you know. Because at the end of the day, like, you're in a solid relationship. Like, I'm trying to do this for her now too. And then like, when we have a kid, I'm trying to do it for the kid too. So like, it really does like bring you up a little bit.
I subscribe to that, man.
Yeah.
That's so sick.
For sure.
Jakey, bro, I've loved this, man. This has been so sick. How you
For sure.
feeling? You good?
Yeah, I'm great.
But that's epic, mate. We went through a lot of it today.
For sure.
What do you think's the biggest thing that we didn't talk about today that you'd like to talk about, that you'd like to bring up?
Honestly, I think that we covered a lot of it. I think that like I said before, a lot of the issues that I face personally have stemmed from relationships with family and partners and things like that. And so like, yeah, like I said, like, I just want to bring awareness to people and let them know that like, it is okay to have like a family that isn't functional, and you can still get by and like figure yourself out. Obviously, if you're younger, it's a lot harder, but like, getting to an age where, you know, like, you don't have to rely on your parents so much, and you can really like figure out the world for yourself, and like really lean on your friends and the people that you've chosen to like surround yourself with. I think that's like such a great thing. Like the friends are like, obviously you can't choose your family, and I wouldn't want to choose my family, but you can choose your friends, and I think that's really important. And like the people you surround yourself with is like one of the most important things you can do.
Bro, mate, that's so sick.
So,
Thank you so much.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. Like it's cool being able to talk about this. Like I said, I never talked about it, and so yeah, it's nice being vulnerable about something that I've never felt like that before, you know. So like, yeah, I don't know, it's cool to, I don't know, get a little bit off my chest.
Yeah, man, I love that. Hey, man, thank you again. Thank you. So much respect, brother. And mate, keen to build this board, brother, and see how we go this afternoon.
Got it in the car. Yeah, let's do it.
I'm excited and I'm a little bit nervous.
For sure.
Thank you, bro.
No, thank you.